straight 12-5 seasons, but this year, the team took a clear step back. Despite being, quote, all in, Dallas failed to make the postseason and had to watch as their hated division rivals dominated the Super Bowl last Sunday. The NFC is more competitive than ever before, and it seems as though the Cowboys are falling behind. Micah Parsons had a strong message for the front office this week saying, quote, obviously, talent is here, but we've just got to finish and go be aggressive the same way they did. You know, I don't want to sit back and just watch other people build and build and build, and I stay the same. So we definitely need some call to action. And the Dallas Cowboys portion of the show begins. Stephen A., how do you feel about Micah's comments?
Well, let me get to a more important subject matter first. I do love myself on the big screen. I mean, it just looks beautiful. I just want to throw that out there. I just want to throw that out there. I mean, I just think it's very, very important to mention that, okay? So let's get that out the way first. Secondly, Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, I say this affectionately. I need this man to be quiet. I really do. I need him to be quiet. I'm going to tell you why. He's not saying anything that's wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just two elements that are more important. Number one, Jerry Jones has no chance in hell of being comparable to Howie Roseman. There's no way. Not with the job that man has done since being reinserted as the decision maker under Jeffrey Lurie for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, the man won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, got to a Super Bowl a couple of years back, and came up short by 3 points to Patrick Mahomes, and then proceeded 2 years later to romp the Kansas City Chiefs in a vengeance Super Bowl game, and now they're the reigning defending Super Bowl champion. So it is what it is in that regard. Jerry Jones ain't been to a conference championship game in 29 years. Okay, so he just needs to get that out of his system right now. Actually, 30 years. Just needs to get that out of his system right now. That's number one. Number two, the biggest reason I need Micah Parsons to be quiet is that I want him to get paid. So you want them to go after Myles Garrett? And you want them to sign a couple of your other teammates that's already been on the squad? What about you, bro? Mr. 52 and a half sacks in your first 5 years. I mean, this dude, I think he ranked like 5th in sacks in the National Football League over the last 4 or 5 years. I want Micah Parsons to get his money. This is the National Football League. This is a hard salary cap. The more opportunities you throw out there for others to get paid by Jerry Jones, the more of an excuse Jerry Jones has of coming to you and saying, we ain't got the money to give you. I want you to get your paper, bro. That's what I want to do. It's rare that I see a person or an athlete, courtesy of his mouth, get in the way of his money. That's my concern with Micah Parsons. Yeah, I've seen plenty of athletes get in the way of their money with their performance. This brother gets in the way of his money by talking and trying to do the right thing. I applaud him for it, but this Jerry Jones we talking about here. Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. CeeDee Lamb is the second highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League. Yeah, they got their money, but Jerry Jones waited till the last minute to give it to him. What you think he's going to do with you? Shh. Get your paper. Get your paper.
Stephen A., the philanthropist.
Right? Yeah. But what else do we expect from Micah? You talked about just his mouth and he's talking, but it starts at the top. Jerry Jones is always talking, so you follow suit if you're Micah Parsons. But the one thing you said I think was the most important part was you said everything he said is true. And that's my thing. For Micah Parsons, you're looking around the locker room and you're playing against the Philadelphia Eagles over the last several years. You go back to just a year ago, the Cowboys won 12 games, Eagles won 11. Mm-hmm. Both got embarrassed in the playoffs, won the wild card, won the divisional. But then a year later, here it is, the Eagles are hoisting a Lombardi trophy and the Cowboys are at home the whole time throughout the playoffs. So there's one thing, we ask our star players to be stars, so go out there and carry the game. We also want to hear him say something at certain times. Mm-hmm. For Micah Parsons, yes, he can get paid, but if he gets paid and the team still isn't winning, still isn't getting over the hump, still isn't getting to a conference championship and have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, well, we're sitting there wondering like, well, Micah Parsons isn't as good as some of these other guys or Dak Prescott or whoever because they don't have the wins. So for Micah Parsons, you're sitting there and you're watching all of this go down and you're like, damn, why are we not getting nobody else? Mm-hmm. Why aren't we going after T. Higgins? Why aren't we signing somebody to help make this team better when we just watched the Philadelphia Eagles sign a guy like Saquon Barkley and and we watched Jalen Hurts on the sideline and said, dude, you were the missing piece. Micah's like, I'm looking for my missing piece. I want to put that last piece of the puzzle to be able to compete and play in meaningful games later on in the season.
See, here's the thing. I'm actually going to defend Micah. I'm usually critical of him talking, but everything he said was spot on. And in fact, I liked his comments a lot more than what Dak said earlier this week and saying we're close. Okay, enough. I think the problem, to Steven's point with Mike, is that he talks so much that when he says something, which I was actually surprised that he said, listen, our front office needs to be aggressive. I was like, finally, this is the kind of stuff that I actually want to hear from Micah Parsons. Not the other, these are my top 5 quarterbacks, but I'm not naming my own quarterback. Like, all of that stuff. And I think, unfortunately, his message now has become diluted because he talks so much. But just because, Steven, the man, you're saying he should be quiet in this moment to not mess up the paper later. If I think I'm one of the best players, I'm not worried about who. If I think I'm the best, I'm not worried about who walks in here alongside me. I'm looking for other dogs. It does mean that Micah has to play up to his mouth, right? But he does understand that this roster has holes, which is everything we have been saying. So why can't Micah say it? Somebody has to get to Jerry, and hopefully Jerry's listening to his best player.
You're probably right, Kimberly, but let's understand for the audience, for the purposes of the audience, why you're probably right. Jerry Jones spends money on his own players. He doesn't spend money on free agents. Cowboys, lowest spending team on free agents, about $20.5 million. So Micah telling him that makes sense, and I get that. I'm just saying this is a brother that got hurt, and he had injuries in the past, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, get your money, bro. Get your money, because we know what he means to the Cowboys. But in the same breath, CeeDee Lamb meant something to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott meant something to the Cowboys. And Jerry Jones waited till the last minute, and inexplicably so, because had he signed them early, he would have saved himself about an additional $20 million. Then he could have had himself a running back like a Derrick Henry, for example, instead of letting him get to Baltimore. Those are the kind of things that you're paying attention to. I understand it. I'm not saying that Micah Parsons is wrong for what he's saying. I'm saying when you're talking so much, if they go out and do stuff and then they come to you and it's justification for them not paying you, that's not something I want for him. I think he deserves better than that. So I'm just simply saying to him, watch himself to make sure you get yours. Don't just get something for everybody else at the expense of you.
I love the talking because he's just taking a cue from the owner. The owner does a lot of talking. Yeah. He does a lot of talking. There's 3 types of teams. Stephen A., pay attention. You can borrow this down the road. 3 types of teams in the NFL, all right?
Talk to me.
Type number 1, serious teams. Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Baltimore, teams of that nature. Category number 2, unserious teams. That would be your Jets. That would be your Browns, your Jaguars, teams of this ilk. Category number 3, for entertainment purposes only.
Oh, how many teams are there?
That would be the Dallas Cowboys. That would be the Dallas Cowboys. Notice how the second we stopped talking about the Super Bowl, the next day, here came the Cowboys. Keep talking. We love them. When your quarterback has a cap hit of $89 million and it takes up 33% of your salary cap going into this year, you're not going to be able to sign enough people to compete with the Eagles.
It'll go down.
Just keep talking. It's great. We love the talking, Stephen A.
Well, I will say this. Entertainment purposes, I mean, that does require you winning a little bit.
I was about to say, is it?
Does it?
I mean,